Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, please consider subscribing and give this video a thumbs up. In today's video we are going to learn the history of Elizabeth Bathory, a noble serial killer in 1590 and 1610. Countess Elizabeth Bathory was a Hungarian noblewoman and purported serial killer from the family of Bathory, who owned land in the Kingdom of Hungary. Bathory was born in 1560 on a family estate in near Bathory, Royal Hungary. She spent her childhood at Ext Castle. Her father was Baron George VI Bathory of the Ext branch of the family, brother of Andrew Bonaventura Bathory, who had been voivode of Transylvania. Her mother was Baroness Anna Bathory, daughter of Stephen Bathory of Sumlio, also voivode of Transylvania, who was of the Sumlio branch. Through her mother, Elizabeth was the niece of the Hungarian noble Stephen Bathory, the King of Poland, the Grand Duke of Lithuania of the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth, and Prince of Transylvania. Her older brother, Stephen Bathory, served as a Judge Royal of Hungary. As a child, Bathory had multiple seizures that may have been caused by epilepsy. At the time, symptoms relating to epilepsy were diagnosed as falling sickness, and treatments included rubbing blood of a non-sufferer on the lips of an epileptic or giving the epileptic a mix of a non-sufferer's blood and piece of skull as their episode ended. In order to explain Bathory's cruelty later in her life is that she was trained by her family to be cruel. Stories include a young Bathory witnessing brutal punishments executed by her family's officers and being taught by family members involved with Satanism and witchcraft. Again, there is no hard evidence for these claims, and so they remain unsubstantiated. Bathory was raised a Calvinist Protestant. As a young woman, she learned Latin, German, Hungarian, and Greek. Born into a privileged family of nobility, Bathory was endowed with wealth, education, and a prominent social rank. At the age of 13, before her first marriage, Bathory allegedly gave birth to a child. The child, said to have been fathered by a peasant boy, was supposedly given away to a local woman who was trusted by the Bathory family. Evidence of this pregnancy came up long after Elizabeth's death, through rumors spread by peasants. Therefore, the validity of the rumor is often disputed. In 1573, Bathory was engaged to Count Ferenc Nádasdy, a Hungarian nobleman. His family was one of the wealthiest and most influential of the era in Hungary. In 1578, Nádasdy became the chief commander of Hungarian troops, leading them to war against the Ottomans. With her husband away at war, Bathory managed business affairs and the estates. This role usually included responsibility for the Hungarian and Slovak people, providing medical care during the Long War, 1593 to 1606. Between 1602 and 1604, after rumors of Bathory's atrocities had spread throughout the kingdom, Lutheran minister István Magyari made complaints against her, both publicly and at the court in Vienna. In 1610, King Matthias II assigned George Thurzo, the Palatine of Hungary, to investigate. According to the testimonies, Bathory's first victims were girls aged 10 to 14 years. Bathory is said to have begun killing daughters of the lesser gentry, who were sent to her gyneceum by their parents to learn courtly etiquette. Some witnesses named relatives who died while at the gyneceum. Others reported having seen traces of torture on dead bodies, some of which were buried in graveyards, and others in unmarked locations. The use of needles was also mentioned by the collaborators in court. There were many suspected forms of torture carried out by Bathory. According to the Budapest city archives, the girls were burned with hot tongs and then placed in freezing cold water. Some witnesses named relatives who died while at the gyneceum. Others reported having seen traces of torture on dead bodies, some of which were buried in graveyards, and others in unmarked locations. Two court officials, Benedek Deseo and Jakub Silvesi, claimed to have personally witnessed the Countess torture and kill young servant girls. On December 12, 1610, Nikola Wyszynski confirmed the agreement with Thurzo about the imprisonment of Bathory and distribution of the estate. On 30th of December, Thurzo went to Chay Castle and arrested Bathory along with 4 of her servants, who were accused of being her accomplices. According to Thurzo's letter to his wife, his unannounced visit found 1 dead girl and another living prey girl in the castle, but there is no evidence that they asked her what had happened to her. Although it is commonly believed that Bathory was caught in the act of torture, she was having dinner. Initially, Thurzo made the declaration to Bathory's guests and villagers that he had caught her red-handed. However, she was arrested and detained prior to the discovery or presentation of the victims. It seems most likely that the claim of Thurzo's discovering Bathory covered in blood has been the embellishment of fictionalized accounts. The accusations of murder were based on rumors. There is no document to prove that anyone in the area complained about the Countess. In this time period, if someone was harmed, or someone even stole a chicken, a letter of complaint was written. 2 trials were held in the wake of Bathory's arrest. The first was held on January 2, 1611, and the second on January 7, 1611. The highest number of victims cited during the trial of Bathory's accomplices was 650, but this number comes from the claim by a servant girl named Susanna that Jacob Silvessi, Bathory's court official, had seen the figure in one of Bathory's private books. The book was never revealed and Silvessi never mentioned it in his testimony. On January 25, 1611, Thurzo wrote a letter to King Matthias describing that they had captured and confined Bathory to her castle. The Palatine also coordinated the steps of the investigation with the political struggle with the Prince of Transylvania. She was detained in the castle of Chay for the remainder of her life, where she died at the age of 54. As George Thurzo wrote, Elizabeth Bathory was locked in a bricked room, but according to other sources, written documents from the visit of priests, July 1614, she was able to move freely and unhindered in the castle, more akin to house arrest. September 1610, she wrote a will in which she left all current and future inheritance possession to her children. In the last month of 1614, she signed her arrangement, in which she distributed the estates, lands, and possessions among her children. On the evening of August 20, 1614, Bathory complained to her bodyguard that her hands were cold, whereupon he replied, "It's nothing, mistress. Just go lie down." She went to sleep and was found dead the following morning. She was buried in the church of Chay on November 25, 1614, but according to some sources, due to the villagers' uproar over having the Countess buried in their cemetery, her body was moved to her birth home at Ext, where it was interred at the Bathory family crypt. The location of her body today is unknown but believed to be buried deep in the church area of the castle. In 1989, writer Michael Farron stated the accusations against Bathory were supported by testimony from more than 300 individuals, some of whom described physical evidence and the presence of mutilated dead, dying and imprisoned girls found at the time of her arrest. The charges leveled against Bathory have also been described as a witch hunt. In a 2018 article for Przygladnych Historycznych, Historical Science Review, Alexandra Bertosevich stated that when Bathory was persecuted, the accusations were a spectacle to destroy her family's influence in the region, which was